The Trump administration is apparently not happy, or was not happy, with a resolution promoting breastfeeding. Well, it's a strange thing to be upset about. The New York Times had an article about it. They reported on Sunday that this resolution, which was presented in May at the World Health Assembly and was based on decades of scientific research, was not accepted by the Trump administration, at least at first. Now, why was that? I mean, basically the language called on governments to protect, promote, and support breastfeeding. And of course, they backed it up with data that says that children who happen to have or happen to be breastfed when they were babies end up having better outcomes, better health outcomes than, of course, formula fed children. Now, it seems that that language was what was contested by the Trump administration. In fact, U.S. officials had tried to remove that language, according to reporter Andrew Jacobs. Now, Jacobs said he spoke with a dozen people from several countries who had participated in these negotiations, who all told him that the United States is trying to block us because they don't like this language about protecting and promoting and supporting breastfeeding. Again, that's super weird. Now, how could the government be against breastfeeding? Again, studies have shown that if possible, you should likely do that. So why be against that at all? It doesn't make any sense. Unless, of course, you think about who's getting money, who's getting paid. And it turns out companies that make formula give a lot of money to politicians, and they have a lot of influence. Now, limiting inaccurate infant formula marketing is most necessary in some of the poorer parts of the world, according to a Guardian investigation published earlier this year in partnership with the international non-governmental organization Save the Children. However, they reported that infant formula companies had been using aggressive, clandestine, and often illegal methods to target mothers in poorest parts of the world and encourage them to choose powdered milk over breastfeeding. So that's what they're doing here. So they're saying they're using these marketing techniques to push formula on mothers who could otherwise breastfeed. And so this resolution from the UN goes against that and would actually go after some of these companies and say, hey, you actually can't do that. In these developing countries, you should let them, unless they're unable to, breastfeed. Now, investigators looked at the Philippines in particular and reported that formula companies, including Nestle, Abbott, Mead Johnson, and Wyeth, now owned by Nestle, had targeted doctors, nurses, midwives, and new mothers by creating infant care pamphlets promoting formula for distribution in hospitals and using Facebook advertising to reach potential customers. At the same time, powerful lobby groups have been working to curtail government legislation regulating formula marketing and promotion in the Philippines and across the world. So, because of the money, now the United States is saying, well, hold on there. I mean, we've got great formula companies that are making this wonderful product. Why don't you use that instead? But why, unless you have some medical issue or personal issue where you can't? And I'm not saying that formula is completely unacceptable. Again, there's situations where people are taking prescription medications that will, interfere with that ability to be able to do that or to do that safely. Then it's perfectly fine. But the United States is saying, no, you're not going to go after these companies because these companies donate to our politicians. They donate to us. So we're not interested in curtailing that. At least at first. You're going to love the little twisty twist here. Now, let me go here to, before we get to the twist though, let's show how far the United States actually wanted to go to try to prevent this language from being adopted in the resolution. Corporations were so up in arms about this that they got the administration to threaten other countries when it comes to trade. For example, the U.S. threatened to withdraw military aid and engage in punitive trade tactics with Ecuador after it introduced a breastfeeding resolution at the World Health Assembly. Other countries, because of that, had appeared hesitant to back the resolution after seeing the threats against Ecuador. Those damn Ecuadorians, how dare they challenge our corporations? Now, if Ecuador had refused to drop the resolution, Washington would have unleashed punishing trade measures and withdrew crucial military aid. And of course, because of those threats, the Ecuadorian government said, okay, we're going to scale it back now. All right. Now here comes the twisty twist. There was one country that actually spoke out and said, hold on a minute, United States, this is actually a good idea. Let's support this legislation or this resolution. And that country is, wait for it, Russia. Now, the U.S. reportedly did not object when Russia stepped in to support the resolution, and therefore it had been approved, mostly intact. Now, there is one thing that was changed slightly, and that is the removal of language that said the World Health Organization would support countries trying to stop inappropriate promotion of foods for infants and young children. Again, that is to please the corporate donors. But interesting how Russia says, hey, you know what? United States, I support this, and maybe you should too. Oh, Russia, you guys support it? Well, never mind. We're your friends over here. We're going to go with it then. That is very interesting. Now, interestingly enough, also, is the reaction from the rest of the delegates. Apparently, they were stunned to find Trump officials using trade threats to oppose something like this. Again, this is not something that I thought would be an international fight over breastfeeding, but it just shows you the power of giant corporations and the stranglehold they have on the American system. We are one of the most corrupt countries, or at least most corrupt industrialized countries, I think, in the OECD. Or we're not the most corrupt country in the world, not by far. But the fact that we have elections where we have things like superdelegates, where we have independent expenditures and giant campaign contributions, and where money is now considered speech and corporations have speech rights, it leads to corrupt situations where corporations tend to control what our politicians do. So much so that it actually gets in the middle of breastfeeding, which is a strange place to be. So, and we've got to do something about that. And the only solution is to get the money out of politics. We've got to get the money out. We've got to get the sickness out, or else it's going to continue to get worse as the corporations slowly take over. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.